Welcome to the first episode of the Everything Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Mahoney, and on the first episode, I'm going to be reacting to a couple of preseason games that I watched over the weekend. And then hopefully at the end, if we have time, I'm going to go over one NBA player on each team that I'm excited to watch. I'm pretty confident that we will have enough time for that.
Hey, I doubt it.
Anyways, I hope you enjoy this episode. Before I start talking about basketball, I just want to make this clear. I do not know everything about the NBA. I want to make a podcast because I love the NBA. I love talking about the NBA. And more importantly, I want to make content that people like and enjoy. Because I remember my first podcast, basketball wise, it was Through the Wire when I was a freshman in high school and I was sick. So I just stayed home and watched the first episode of Through the Wire. So I want to do that for other people. Like if someone's having a bad day or if they're sick. So if my podcast uplifts you, and you enjoy it, then that means the world to me. And I really don't care if people think that I'm smart, dumb. That's not why I'm doing it. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this episode. The first game that I'm going to talk about is the Mavericks versus the Timberwolves. And they played twice in Abu Dhabi. The Timberwolves won both of those games, so I'm going to start off with them. Their offense looked pretty good. They're moving the ball well. Nice kick-out passes, making the extra pass. And also what I was interested in, which is very important for the Timberwolves offense, is that they need to figure out how to use Cat and Gobert. And I like the actions that they ran in this game to utilize both of their abilities. I am going to start off by talking about double drags. A double drag is two ball screens. This works for the Timberwolves because Karl Anthony Towns can shoot and Gobert is a good roller. So on the double drag, Cat sets the first screen, pops, and then Rudy Gobert sets the second screen and he rolls. It was a really effective play, and I like when the Timberwolves run this action. I also like when the Timberwolves have Karl Anthony Towns moving off the ball and having Gobert screening for him. An example of this was in the second game. The Timberwolves had Karl Anthony Towns run off a pin down, and Gobert was screening for him. Karl Anthony Towns was able to get an open three, and he hit it. Another nice play that they ran was a horns play, and it's called horns flare. So basically, it's a horn set, and Karl Anthony Towns sets the first screen, but after setting that first screen, he receives a flare screen from Rudy Gobert, and Karl Anthony Towns was able to get a good three off it. He just missed it. It was a good shot, good execution. I really liked that play. Also, the Timberwolves ran a nice ATO, which is after timeouts ATO. Anyways, it was Spain pick and roll. They only ran it once, so I'm not sure if they're going to run it in the regular season. I think that the Timberwolves should run Spain pick and roll in the regular season with Anthony Edwards. Spain pick and roll is just a normal pick and roll, but someone sets a back screen on the screener's man. This is a good way to get Anthony Edwards going downhill because if the screener's in a drop, in a hedge, if you set a back screen on that defender, he's out of position, so Anthony Edwards can get into the paint, and he's so hard when he gets into the paint because he's such an incredible finisher, and he's so athletic. It's just an automatic 2 points, so hopefully the Timberwolves run some Spain pick and roll in the regular season. And finally, the Timberwolves also ran a good play. I'm not sure what it's called exactly, but what they did was they gave it to Gobert or Towns at the elbow, and it was a DHO play for Anthony Edwards. He would pass it to them and then immediately run towards them, receive the DHO, and then that would allow him to get downhill and once again get into the paint. On the first one, he got fouled. And then on the second one, unfortunately, he turned the ball over. But I think it's a really good play that they should continue to run. Moving on to the Timberwolves defense, it was good in the two games. It was good last year. And the Timberwolves will probably be a good defensive team this season because they got Jaden McDaniels. In my opinion, I think that Jaden McDaniels is the best on ball defender in the NBA. He moves his feet so well and he has great height, great length. It's incredible to watch him play defense. And he did a really good job on Luka. Luka was just hitting tough shots and he's Luka. So there's not really much you can do. But Jaden McDaniels was guarding him pretty well. And then you got Anthony Edwards. He's also a good on ball defender, struggles off the ball, sometimes falls asleep. But other than that, Anthony Edwards is really good on defense, and he wants to guard the opposing team's best player. He's really competitive. An underrated defender that the Timberwolves have is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's a good on-ball defender, moves his feet well, and he also hits threes. And then, of course, you got Rudy Gobert, who you can criticize him all you want. I'm also not a big Rudy Gobert fan, but Rudy Gobert does a lot of things well for your defense and is one of the best interior defenders in the NBA. The Timberwolves also force a lot of turnovers with their length, and they just need consistent effort. Like in the two games, Karl Anthony Towns' effort was really good on defense. I was really impressed. Karl Anthony Towns could struggle on defense, but if he gives good effort, then I think that's perfectly fine. It's hard for Karl Anthony Towns because he's the four and he's guarding four. So I understand why he is struggling. But for the Timberwolves, I think that this team can be good in the regular season. It's tough because the West is so competitive, so many good teams. But if they continue to move the ball, execute on offense like they did in these two games, just to make it clear, it was against the Mavericks and their defense is bad. So maybe it's a fluke. I don't know. And also, if they play really good defense and they got to focus on not turning the ball over. The Timberwolves struggle with turnovers. If they focus on those things, then I think that the Timberwolves can have a good regular season. I'm not sure if the Timberwolves are going to have postseason success, but I think that they can be a really good regular season team. As for the Mavericks, they didn't look good really at all in these two games. And of course, it's two games and it's the preseason. But for me, the problems that they had last year, it also happened in this game too. So I'm kind of concerned about them. Of course, Luka Doncic looked like Luka. He was absolutely incredible in the two games. His pick and roll scoring was great, scoring in isolation, and his playmaking was great. I remember one play where Grant Williams was in the corner and Luka threw it over his head and hit Grant Williams for three. And I'm pretty sure Grant Williams hit the three, but it was such an incredible pass. And Luka's just such a great playmaker and such a great offensive player. And I really like watching him play. Jaden Hardy is a bucket. He was good at the end of the regular season last year, and it continued in these two preseason games. In the second one, he kind of struggled in the first half, but in the second half, he picked it up and he was good. Jaden Hardy can score in the pick and roll, has a nice mid-range shot, has a good floater, and can hit threes. His playmaking kind of concerns me. I don't know how good of a playmaker he's going to be, but I think that the Mavericks should use him as a third shot creator next to Kyrie and Luka. Other than that, the Mavericks really didn't look good on offense because it looked the same as last year. Give the ball to Luka and everyone just stand around and wait for him to pass you the ball, which I don't understand why that's their system still when they have Kyrie Irving. I do not like how Jason Kidd is using Kyrie on offense when Luka has the ball. I think that Jason Kidd should run actions that makes the defense guard Luka on the ball, but also having Kyrie move off the ball and make the defense guard that too. I think that's really hard for defenses to guard. What annoys me is that this Mavericks team has good plays that they can use to have Kyrie move off the ball, but Jason Kidd doesn't run those actions for Kyrie. He runs those actions for Seth Curry, Tim Hardaway, good players, but I also think that having Kyrie run those actions would be so hard to defend. An example is Spain pick and roll, and the Mavericks run a lot of Spain pick and rolls, but the majority of the time when they run Spain pick and roll, they have Kyrie in the corner instead of having Kyrie be the back screener. That doesn't make sense to me. The Mavericks also have this fire play. It's a double drag veer, which is the same double drag we talked about earlier, but the screener immediately sets a pin down for someone. Jason Kidd runs this play for Tim Hardaway Jr., and I think that this play would be really good for Kyrie and having Kyrie come off the pin down because Kyrie moves off the ball really well and he can hit those moving shots coming off pin downs. But for some reason, Jason Kidd doesn't run this action for Kyrie, and it doesn't make sense to me what Jason Kidd is seeing. I just don't understand why having Kyrie as a decoy just sitting in the corner is tougher to guard for defenses than having Kyrie move off the ball. There is one example that I really want to talk about, and it was when the Mavericks in the first preseason game, they ran a stagger for Seth Curry. Why is this important? Because the Timberwolves defense was focused on that action, and that gave Luka Doncic more space to go to work one-on-one because there was not a help defender because the help was focused on Seth Curry coming off the pin down. That's the same results that they can have if they have Kyrie moving off the ball and using Kyrie in those actions, in my personal opinion. But let's make this clear. The offense is probably not going to be the problem because Kyrie's still going to give you 25. Luka's going to do his thing, and they'll create good shots from three, from oops. And Kyrie and Luka are two of the best ISO scorers in the NBA. So the offense is probably not the biggest issues, even though the Mavericks do not utilize Kyrie well offensively. The defense is probably the biggest concern for this team. And once again, it looked the same as it did last year, and that really concerns me. I do like Derek Lively, and he looked really good in the second preseason game. He was good in drop. He was altering everything at the rim, was getting a couple of blocks. And a play that really impressed me was Anthony Edwards was coming off a stagger, right? Anthony Edwards curled that stagger, and Derek Lively was in a tough spot because he had to stop Anthony Edwards from curling off the stagger, but also Rudy Gobert was rolling to the basket. And Anthony Edwards threw the oop to Rudy Gobert, but Derek Lively deflected it, and it was really impressive to see. But Derek Lively is really the only good thing about this Mavericks defense. Their team defense is god awful. They don't communicate well. They don't rotate well. It's really bad, especially since they don't have great defensive pieces. So you got to be able to rotate, help, communicate. And the Mavericks just do not do that well. For example, when the Timberwolves were able to get good dribble penetration, the drop-off pass was open because the low man had to help on that drive, but no one would help the helper, and it led to easy dunks for Rudy Gobert. And also, their rotations on the backside were not good, specifically when they tried to X out. And when you X out, what that means is the low man helps the helper, and then the other weak side defender has to split the difference between the two guys that are on the weak side of the floor, then close out to the first pass, then the low man would immediately close out to second pass. The Mavericks' rotations on these were so bad. I remember Grant Williams and Josh Green, who are good defenders and should be the Mavericks' better perimeter defenders. They messed this up, and this led to Karl Anthony Towns' dunk. Another one when Jaden Hardy was supposed to execute the X out, but his closeout was so bad. He literally gave Naz Reid baseline, and Naz Reid just threw down a dunk. So that's the stuff that I'm talking about when it comes to team defense. And the Mavericks had this problem last year too. So that's why I'm concerned. I thought that Jason Kidd would go over how they want to rotate on defense, but it looked the exact same. So that's why I'm concerned about the Mavericks. They have the talent to be a top 6 seed, but in my opinion, with Jason Kidd as the coach and with how they play defense, they're probably going to be in the play-in. But once again, I hope that I'm wrong because I really like Kyrie and Luka, and I want people to see that it's not Kyrie and Luka's fault that this team may underperform. You know what I mean? Moving on from the Mavericks and their disappointing garbage defense and whatever those two games were. Next team I'm going to talk about is the Golden State Warriors. They played the Lakers. I want to make this clear. I'm not going to talk about the Lakers because LeBron and Austin Reeves weren't playing, but the Warriors looked really good. And I liked how they used Chris Paul offensively. And I think that Warriors fans, Steph fans, I think all of them should be excited for how this team looks. But of course, it's one game, but the Warriors' offense is always amazing and beautiful. And then Chris Paul brings another element with his mid-range scoring. I remember the first basket, Chris Paul and Looney were running a two-man game, and Chris Paul got to the baseline, hit a nice mid-range jumper. That's not something that you see in the Warriors' offense. It's usually a lot of threes, a lot of cutting, which is effective, but you need more than just threes and a couple layups from cuts. So having a good mid-range scorer is good for them. Now I want to talk about the sets that the Warriors ran using Chris Paul, Steph, Clay, all those guys. First one was Pistol Miami, and Miami is a DHO that flows into a ball screen, and Chris Paul did a good job of using it, and he kicked it out to Clay for an open three. Clay just missed it, but that's a play where the Warriors can use to get good dribble penetration and get to the middle of the floor. And then later on in the game, the Warriors ran that exact same play for Steph Curry, and Steph Curry got a nice mid-range pull-up off it. They also ran Chicago action, and Chicago is a pin down into DHO. And once again, Chris Paul, they ran it for Chris Paul, and Steph Curry set the pin down. And Chris Paul did a good job of getting middle. He drew the help of Anthony Davis and dropped it off to Kevon Looney for a dunk. So that's another good play that the Warriors should run. Of course, in the Warriors offense, they're going to run staggers, pin down, splits. And with Chris Paul, it's so good because now you have Clay and Steph both off the ball. I remember one play where Clay came off a stagger, but immediately Steph received a pin down after he was the first screen in the stagger and then received a pin down from Kevon Looney. That's possible because Chris Paul is the ball handler. So that's probably why Steve Kerr wants Chris Paul starting, which I don't think it's a great idea, but still, I understand what he's trying to do. Moving on to the defense, and what you got to understand about the Warriors is the Mavericks team defense sucks, but the Warriors team defense is good. They rotate so well, they communicate. There's a reason why they've won 4 championships, and the defense was still really good. It was impressive to watch. And what the Warriors want to do on defense is not give up middle. So they ice pick and rolls And when you ice a pick and roll, you send the ball handler baseline. So the reason why the Warriors ice pick and rolls is one, they do not want to give up middle, but also when the screener rolls, they want the screener to roll into two backside defenders and then have those two backside defenders make those rotations on the weak side, close out to the 3 point line, and not give up an open three. That's why they ice it. And the Warriors in that first game looked really good when they were icing pick and rolls. Both backside defenders were there to tag the roller. And in this game, the roller was Anthony Davis. So the Warriors did a good job, even though Anthony Davis kind of had a good game. Also, I love the effort from the Warriors on defense. Chris Paul, even though he's getting older,
I ain't old like you. I ain't old.
slower, and less effective on defense, his effort was really good on defense. He was fighting through screens, and you can see the little things that he understands on defense. And I think that he will help the Warriors not only offensively, but also on defense. I want to move on to the Warriors bench because they looked incredible. Jonathan Kuminga was great. He was finishing at the rim, scoring in transition, hitting threes. The Lakers were kind of daring Jonathan Kuminga to shoot. They were closing out short because Jonathan Kuminga has struggled with his 3 point shot. But this game, he was hitting his threes, which is so big for his development. Moses Moody, he was the Warriors' better bench players at the end of the regular season. He shoots threes, he plays defense, he can attack a closeout. He doesn't have the upside like a Jonathan Kuminga, but he's still a good player. And then the Warriors rookie, Brandon Pozmensky. I'm sorry if I botched that name, but he is really good for a rookie. Super smart, makes good decisions, unselfish, and he can score a little bit too. The play that impressed me the most from Brandon was he was getting back on defense in transition. And instead of going for a steal like how a young player would, he took a charge in transition. It was really impressive, and I don't really see that from rookies. And then Dario Saric, I think, fits this team perfectly because the Warriors, with their cutting, they need a passing center, and Dario Saric is a really good passer, and he can shoot threes. So this just shows how it's all about system and how you are used because I can think of at least 10 NBA teams where Dario Saric would not be effective and people would think that he's a scrub. Dario is not that bad of a basketball player, especially offensively with his passing and shooting ability. But I really like the Warriors heading into this season. If they continue to create good looks off their sets, if they continue to hit threes, if Chris Paul can also hit his mid range shots, and if they play defense as a team, rotating while helping, then I think they will be successful. Remember, in this game, Draymond did not play. So when he gets healthy, let's see this team in action. Next game I'm going to be talking about is the Bulls versus the Bucks. And not a lot to say about the Bucks. The Bucks had good ball movement, which is important because with Giannis and Dame, the fact that they attract so many double teams, if the Bucks move the ball well like how they did against us, then they should be able to create open looks and should be fine. Brooke Lopez, he's still really good, and his 3 point shooting is so big for them. Marjan Beauchamp, I really like him. Had a couple nice finishes in transition. Good defender. I think that he should be the fifth starter instead of Malik Beasley because Marjan's a better defender. I really don't know what Adrian Griffin is talking about. So I really don't care where the Bulls are. I don't care if they're a playing team. I mean, I would be disappointed if they just don't even make the play in general. But I want them to look good, and I'm not going to lie, their offense looked better this game than it did last year. They were moving the ball well. They were sorry. They were taking more threes, which was a problem last year. They were playing faster, trying to push the ball more. I think that Kobe White looked extremely good at point guard. His playmaking was good. And then you have Alex Caruso, Javon, Io, Torrey off the bench. Those are really good defensive players to have off your bench. Patrick Williams, he looked good. Patrick Williams is a good player, but he won't break out as people think that he will because he's a fourth option. I've seen this for a long time since DeMar signed with us, which I'm perfectly fine because I would rather the offense run through DeMar than Patrick Williams. But I think that Patrick Williams needs to focus on playing off DeMar, mainly cutting. I want to see him cut more. That's the most important thing. In general, with this Bulls offense, I want them to be cutting more. On defense, the Bulls looked good in the first quarter, like how they did in the second half of last year, forcing turnovers, good on ball defense, good activity, good effort from everyone. Zach and DeMar, they were making some nice defensive plays. And sometimes those guys struggle on defense. They're not really good defenders. But if they give good effort, then I am perfectly fine. I'm not going to lie to you. So for the Bulls this season, I'm not going to lie, I still have them as a play-in team. But if they play team basketball, then that's perfectly fine by me because that's probably going to be more enjoyable. And of course, I'm fine with the DeMar isolations because DeMar is a great ISO scorer. I just think that you need more to your offense. That's my problem. It's not with DeMar isolations. I'm perfectly fine if DeMar has 6 ISOs in a game. That doesn't matter to me. Okay, maybe 6 is too much. I don't know. Next game I'm going to talk about is the Suns versus Pistons. And Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, they had their debuts as a trio and they looked incredible. 3 great shot creators and they were hitting tough shots, tough mid-range pull-ups. They are very talented. But what I like with the Suns offense and what they did was they did a good job of running actions to force switches and to create space for the big three to get good shots. For example, on one play, the Suns ran wide action. Wide action is just a screen away for someone, and they ran it for Bradley Beal, but it was a decoy to give Devin Booker room to isolate, and he hit a nice mid-range jumper. Those are the things that I'm talking about. Another time was when they ran Spain. They had Devin Booker as the back screener, and Bradley Beal got an easy layup. So with the Suns offense, it will be a lot of isolation, attacking matchups, hitting mid-range pull-ups. But if they run good actions to create those mismatches, then I'm perfectly fine because Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker are very talented scorers. Moving on to the Suns defense, which is honestly what I'm looking for because I think their offense is going to be so good, but how well can they defend? I'm not sure if they can defend at a championship level. And it starts with Yusuf Nurkic. He showed some good effort plays on defense in this one, but I've seen Yusuf Nurkic and he's really slow on defense and not much of a rim protector, and that kind of concerns me. And you saw that in this game too, when he was in drop coverage and he would recover to the roll man, but he really didn't alter anything, and guys like Jalen Duren would just finish over him easily. But I need to watch them in the regular season, see if their defense gets any better, and then make my final decision around April if they can defend at a championship level. Now, for the Pistons, they looked good. They start off this game really bad, and they're going to be a bad defensive team. But I want to talk about their offense. That's the most important thing, especially with their young talent. Jaden Ivey, I don't know why he wasn't starting, but his three-pointer looked good. He's super athletic, and I think that he should be starting with Asar Thompson and Cade Cunningham. Asar Thompson, I really like, and he's good. He was playing good defense. His playmaking was good, and he hit a big time three to tie this game and send it into overtime. Jalen Duren, I like his game because he's a good passer. And of course, he's athletic, super strong, and a good offensive rebounder. Speaking more about their offense, I liked how it looked, even though at the beginning, once again, they started off bad. And I liked the sets that they were running. They were running Chicago, and head coach Monty Williams did run these sets when he was the head coach for the Suns. I also like when they ran Spain pick and roll, and when Bogdanovich is healthy, Bojan Bogdanovich, I would like to see him as the back screener with Cade as the ball handler. And I'm pretty excited to watch that if they do decide to run Spain pick and roll. Got to give a shout out to Killian Hayes. He did look good. And the problem with Killian has always been his scoring, and he was hitting some tough shots. Of course, it's the preseason, so I got to take that into consideration, but I want Killian to succeed. He's always been a good passer. He seems like a good guy. He can defend. It's just when you're a point guard and you can't do anything offensively as a scorer, that really hurts you. So if Killian continues to look like this offensively, then I think that he can definitely be a good contributor. Marvin Bagley, I'm not going to talk about him too much, but Marvin Bagley was rolling well. He was finishing well, nice touch, and he had a good game. He had 25. And I think with having ball handlers like Asor, Jaden, Cade, and Killian, I think that those pocket passes will be there for Marvin Bagley. But of course, I don't think that Marvin Bagley is anything special because his jump shot is not there and he's not a good defender. But this was a good game for Marvin Bagley. Next game I'm going to talk about is the Celtics versus Sixers. And to start off with the Sixers, they looked solid defensively. Tyrese Maxey was really good. It was so great to watch him play again. He's super fun to watch because he's really good in transition. He can score off the dribble, and he was attacking the Celtics deep drop coverage. He was getting some good pull-ups, and Tyrese Maxey is a really good third option for the Sixers, which is why they're going to be fine. Yes, the drama, and I don't know how successful they're going to be in the playoffs, but in the regular season, I think they'll still have success. Jaden Springer was great. His defense was really good on the ball. He had a good possession against Jaylen Brown, and then he blocked Jason Tatum in the second half. I don't know how he blocked Jason Tatum, but it was such an incredible block, and I was really impressed with it. Now, talking about the Celtics, of course, it was Kristaps Porzingis' debut, and he looked great, and he fits the Celtics 5-out system. I remember in the first play of the game, Paul Reed was just falling asleep, left Kristaps open for three, and Kristaps hit it. That is why the fit is good, because Kristaps can shoot the three. I like that Joe Mazzulla was giving Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown more post touches because we know the Celtics offense, 5-out, drive and kick, a bunch of threes. They'll set flare screens, pin down staggers. But I think that you need more ways to score. You can't just rely on threes. And I think that the Celtics are very willing of scoring off of post-ups. And it was good that they were running some post-ups in this game against the Sixers. Drew Holiday looked good again, like usual. Offensively, he's just inconsistent. What can you do about it? But on defense, he's so good as an on-ball defender. Like, Drew Holiday is one of the best defenders for a reason. And having Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, that's a lot of switchability. So the Celtics are versatile defensively. They just got to focus on their screen navigation if they're going to run deep drop. I don't like deep drop coverage because it's very easy to give up pull-up jumpers wide open pull up jumpers. And the final game that I watched is the Kings versus the Raptors. It was either that game or the Grizzlies versus the Pacers. And Tyrese Halliburton was out, so I decided to watch the Kings versus the Raptors. And I'm honestly happy that I did because I saw the Raptors' new offense under head coach Darko, and it looked really good. They were just playing such great, unselfish basketball, and there was so much cutting, and they were creating good shots. It was great to see. And what they would do is that they were running a lot of elbow action, and Darko comes from Memphis. So they run a lot of elbow action through Steven Adams, and Darko's doing the same thing with Jakob Pertl. Give it to him in the elbow. And what would happen is it's a read and react thing. So he would come up to someone and set up a DHO, and either the DHO is ran and you try to get downhill, drive and kick, or whatever. Or if you're getting overplayed, you cut to the basket and you try to get an easy layup off that. And then it flows into another DHO. So it's really effective. The Raptors had some bad turnovers off a couple of bad passes where you think a guy's open, but he isn't. And the Kings were getting a deflection and forced a turnover. But other than that, it looked really good. They also ran a couple of nice sets. One of them is Elbows Chicago, which is Chicago action, but it's ran on the elbow. So you pass it to the guy at the elbow, and then it's pinned down into DHO. And they used this to get Pascal Siakam going downhill, and he finished nicely with an easy layup. And I also liked how Darko used Gary Trent Jr. I think he should be starting because that starting lineup, Scotty, Schroeder, OG, Pascal, and Jakob, there's only one good three-point shooter, so I think they need more three-point shooting. But Darko used Gary Trent Jr. really well. And in this system, with more ball movement, I think that Gary Trent will thrive. He just needs to be consistent. He's sometimes inconsistent. But Gary Trent Jr. was moving off the ball well, hitting catch and shoot threes. He looked good. Moving on to Scotty Barnes, and I really liked how Scotty looked. He was aggressive. I remember one play, he got a switch of De'Aaron Fox onto him and just bullied him and scored in the paint. His finishing around the rim looked nice. The only thing I'm concerned about is that outside jumper. It's always been a struggle for him, and he wasn't hitting his outside shots in this one, so I'm a little concerned about that because if he wants to reach his potential, he has to start hitting those shots. But Scotty Barnes' playmaking also looked good. He had a couple nice passes in transition, and I remember one, he was getting double teamed in the post, and Scotty Barnes saw the open man, Gary Trent, hit him, and Gary Trent hit a wide open catch and shoot three. The Raptors were also playing good defense. They made multiple defensive efforts a lot, and they were forcing turnovers, which this is what the Raptors do with Pascal, OG, Scotty Barnes. They got a lot of length, and they can read passing lanes really well, and they forced a lot of turnovers, and that's going to be something that the Raptors are going to continue to do. Force turnovers and score in transition. There were some bad, like sometimes they would overhelp and give up an open three or get beat back door. But other than that, against a really good offense in the Sacramento Kings, I thought that the Raptors played really well on defense. And talking about the Kings, really not much to talk about. Their offense still looked great. Playing through Sabonis, a lot of DHOs, a lot of cutting. Keegan Murray looked good. He hit a moving three off a DHO. He also had a couple nice finishes in the paint. So I feel like if he's aggressive, he will only have a better year in his second year. But the defense was still bad. They struggled with the length of the Toronto Raptors. They weren't guarding well in transition. JaVale McGee had a couple of good moments, but he also got dunked on by Scotty Barnes. So I really don't know. But I think that the Kings are still going to be good during the regular season, but that defense is still concerning, and the West is only better. So I don't really know. I want them to have success because they're a really fun offense to watch. I just don't know. And De'Aaron Fox was just chill this game. He really didn't. It didn't look like that he was really trying. He wasn't that involved in the offense. So really, not much to say about De'Aaron. He's really good. His mid-range shot continues to improve. One of the fastest point guards in the NBA. He's great. So that's all I got for you for the first episode of the Everything Hoops podcast. And I want to make something clear. If you're from YouTube, for some reason, YouTube's not allowing me to put in links right now for my Spotify. It's pretty ridiculous. So if you want to follow me on Spotify, follow Everything Hoops on Spotify, then you just go to the homepage and then go to the link. But thank you for watching this. This was really fun to make. And I'm going to continue to make these episodes, continue to analyze the NBA. And I hope you like this type of content. And I hope you have a great day. And that's all I got for you. Bye.